You felt it, sitting in traffic that shouldn't exist, a 10-minute errand that somehow takes 40, or a crosswalk with a 2-minute wait for a light that gives cars priority every single cycle. We're usually told this is exactly how cities naturally grow. Too many people, not enough roads, bad luck. But that isn't true. Every red light timing, every massive parking lot, every 6-lane arterial road, someone decided to build that. And in most American cities, those decisions trace back to a simple fact. Your city makes more money when you drive than when you don't. To understand why, you have to look at the foundational problem of local government finance. Property taxes are supposed to be the backbone of a municipal budget, but they are incredibly painful for politicians to raise. When leaders keep property taxes artificially low, it leaves a structural gap between what a city collects and what it costs to keep the lights on. Sales tax becomes the financial release valve to fill that deficit, scaling aggressively with car-dependent consumption. Gas, vehicle payments, and auto insurance, and massive big-box retail runs that require a large trunk all generate heavy sales tax revenue for the municipality. The suburban car-first city is a strict financing model. It relies entirely on an incentive structure that only works if people keep driving to keep spending. Because cities need that consumption tax to survive, they are highly incentivized to zone for enormous retail footprints over human-scale services. A sprawling strip mall with hundreds of parking spaces generates incredible taxable retail sales per acre. Take Tucson, Arizona. The city moved to annex its own auto mall just outside city limits to capture an estimated $1.5 million in car sale tax revenue. That money was already written into the budget before the transfer closed. This is a national pattern. Through aggressive annexation, sprawling big box development is the mechanism cities use to finance their own growth. They secure vast expanses of land purely for high-volume consumption. From the municipality's perspective, this makes perfect short-term financial sense. They collect enormous sales tax from the retail activity, all without needing to build or maintain the expensive, dense municipal services required by actual neighborhoods. By approving these sprawling projects, the city prioritizes the creation of high-yield retail revenue engines over the development of functional, walkable neighborhoods. Beyond taxes, there is an even more direct way municipalities extract money from drivers on the road: traffic fines and citation enforcement. A national database compiled by Governing Magazine found nearly 600 U.S. towns pulling over 10% of their general fund revenue purely from fines. For 80 of those towns, fines made up over half their budget. The most documented case of this is Ferguson, Missouri. A 2015 Department of Justice report found its police practices were dictated by municipal revenue targets rather than public safety, and the city's Black residents bore the overwhelming brunt of those stops. This chart shows Washington, D.C.'s projected revenue from its automated traffic camera program. The city's budget office expects this single source of income to roughly double to about $342.5 million a year by 2027. The city counts on this money to balance its books before a single car speeds. This creates an unavoidable mathematical reality. The local government depends on its citizens continuing to drive dangerously to remain solvent. The physical layout of these cities is also forced by hidden legal mandates. Zoning codes in most U.S. cities contain parking minimums, laws requiring a specific number of parking spaces per building, regardless of actual market demand. This single pervasive regulation ensures that large swaths of otherwise buildable land must be converted into flat asphalt. Before a single apartment or transit stop can be constructed, the legal requirement for car storage takes priority, locking the environment into car dependency. Then there is the funding loop for the roads themselves. Because road maintenance is disproportionately funded by gas taxes and vehicle registration fees, drivers are structurally the only ones counted as financial stakeholders. Pedestrians and cyclists are sidelined from the funding conversation entirely. To manage congestion, cities turn to induced demand. Adding lanes rarely reduces traffic long-term. Instead, the extra space encourages more driving, filling the new lanes. Yet widening roads remains an easy, highly visible capital project for politicians to point to as proof of growth. These policies feed a closed loop. We mandate parking to accommodate cars, which forces more people to drive, generating the exact tax revenue the city needs to stay solvent. But the math behind this model is finally catching up. Organizations analyzing municipal finance have found that this low-density, car-centric growth model functions a lot like a Ponzi scheme. Cities take on massive long-term infrastructure liabilities up front and require constant new suburban development just to pay for the maintenance shortfalls of the old development. This chart shows the concept of fiscal productivity. On the left, you can see the extremely low tax revenue generated per acre by a sprawling strip mall. On the right is the staggeringly high cost required to repave its roads and replace its water pipes. The car-dependent sprawl simply doesn't generate enough wealth to pay for its own existence, and the people paying the steepest price are the ones who can't legally or financially drive. Low-income families, the elderly, the disabled, and the young are forced to subsidize a massive, expensive infrastructure system that they cannot fully use. Once you trace the money and see the structural problem, you can fix it. Cities across the country are reconsidering this entire model. They are repealing parking minimums, executing road diets to prioritize pedestrian safety, and rewriting zoning codes to allow for mixed-use density. Traffic is not an inevitable failure of engineering. In a narrow sense, it's a feature of municipal finance. The next time you're stuck at a red light, you're waiting on a budget.